Maybe muted. Muted. Muted.
Rick, can you hear us?
Muted.
No, I see that he's muted.
I can hear.
Is
Great.
up.
Can you please state your name for me and the location from where you are calling?
Rick Healy, and I am participating from the state of Florida on a trip that was scheduled before I was appointed to the board.
Understood. Thank you for joining us. And Rick's the only one online, right? I don't see anybody else. So I move that Mr. Healy's voice may be adequately heard in his location. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. All right. Motion 2 is pursuant to the Park Authority's Policy 111, remote participation in public meetings. I move that Rick Healy may be permitted to participate remotely in this meeting because it comports with the policy we adopted and a physical quorum is present here at the Park Authority Boardroom, 9th floor, Heritage Building. Do I have a
I
second?
second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that motion carries. Since Rick's the only one with us right now, we can get right into the agenda. So Mike, that's you. Right. Linwood is absent and excused this evening. Now we can get started.
Then I would call to order the Park Operations Committee meeting. And there's a presentation,
Yes.
all yours.
Good evening, everyone. Kim Eckert, Division Director, Park Operations Division. This evening, we'll be reviewing the quarterly project report of park improvement projects completed by the Park Operations Committee. This includes projects completed July 2024 through December 2024. You'll see a number of court improvements tonight in this quarterly report. Next slide. In the Braddock District, the Braddock District at Audrey Moore Rec Center. We completed a floor replacement. We replaced approximately 1,500 square feet of flooring in the club rooms 1 and 2 due to water damage. We replaced previous floating floor material that was foam based with new vinyl plank material. The new material was cost effective and extends the life of the floor. This was funded by the Revenue Fund. The cost was just under $10,000, completed in August 2024, and the project manager was Russ Davis. Next slide. At Country Club View Park, an athletic court reconstruction. This was a full tennis court reconstruction. We regraded and added new asphalt. We installed new fencing and nets, lined and color coded the new court. This was funded by the sinking fund. This was just under $205,000, completed in October 2024, and the project manager was Marcos Suarez. Next slide. At Fitzhugh Park, an athletic court renovation. We completed a basketball court overlay, regraded and added new asphalt, installed new goals and nets, lined and color coded the new courts. This was funded by a combination of the sinking fund and ARPA funds. This was just over $39,000. It was completed in September 2024. And again, the project manager was Marcos Suarez. Next slide. At Wakefield Park, we completed some skate repairs. We repaired over 85 cracks and chips in the concrete surface of the skate park. We tested some new caulking to determine the suitability and durability for spring repairs and the expansion joints. This was funded by the General County Construction Fund, $9,500. Completed in November 2024, and the project manager was Russ Davis. Next slide. In the Drainsville District at Turner Farm Park, we completed an equestrian gate project. So we installed a 26-foot long new equestrian gate to ensure the safety of the horses during loading and unloading of the trailers. We added a numeric keypad for security, and we added some in-ground wiring for automatic entry and exit access. This was funded by a combination of the General County Construction Fund and donations from Turner Farm Equestrian. This was just over $85,000, completed in November 2024, and the project manager was Russ Davis. Next slide. In the Franconia District at Brookfield Park, yet another athletic court renovation. We completed a basketball court overlay, regraded and added new asphalt, installed new goals and nets, lined and color coded the new courts. This was funded by a combination of the sinking fund and ARPA funds. The cost was just under $44,000, completed in September 2024, and the project manager was Marcos Suarez. Next slide. In Hunter Mill District at Lake Fairfax Park, we completed a fencing project. We extended fencing around Field 6. We installed 360 linear feet of chain link fence on the end lines of Field 4. We also installed 360 linear feet of chain link fence on the end lines and 402 linear feet of chain link fence on the sideline of Field 1. This was funded by the Masterbrook Grant and a donation from Great Falls Reston Soccer Club. The cost was just over $66,000, completed November 2024, and the project manager was Area 6 Manager Michael Cardona. Next slide. In the Mason District, Pine Ridge Park, we completed another fencing project. We extended the fencing around Field 6, installed 295 linear feet of 10-foot high chain link fencing. We installed 3 chain link fence gates for access. This was funded by the Masterbrook Grant Program and donations from the Braddock Road Youth Club. This was just over $11,000, completed in August 2024, and the project manager is Area 2 Manager Amber Stremow. Slide. In Mount Vernon District, at Woodley Hills Park, another athletic court renovation. This was a full tennis court reconstruction. We regraded and added new asphalt, installed new fencing and nets, lined and color-coded the new court. This was funded by the Sinking Fund. This was just over $204,000, completed in October 2024, and the project manager was Marco Suarez. Next slide. At Luria Park, another athletic court renovation. Full basketball court overlay. We regraded and added new asphalt, installed new goals and nets, lined and color-coded the new court, funded by the Sinking Fund. This was $42,000, completed in November 2024, and again, the project manager was Marco Suarez. Next slide. In Providence District, at Tyler Park, an athletic court renovation. This was a full basketball court overlay, regraded and added new asphalt, installed new goals, lined and color-coded the new court. This was funded by Sinking Fund. This was just under $55,000, completed in November 2024. And again, the project manager was Marco Suarez. Busy this season. Springfield District, at Burke Lake Park. We completed a parking lot improvements project. So that included striping the parking lot at the golf course. We striped all the crosswalks on the picnic loop road at the parking lot and the ice cream parlor to improve safety of pedestrian traffic. This included over 150 spaces. This was funded by the Revenue Fund, just over $6,000, completed September 2024, and the project manager was Russ Davis. Again, at Burke Lake Park, we replaced a 60-foot long retaining wall right by the administrative offices. We removed the wooden timbers and built new wall using concrete to increase the durability and longevity of the wall. Funded by the General County Construction Fund, just over $9,000, completed in October 2024, and the project manager was Russ Davis. At Pope's Head Park, yet another athletic court reconstruction. We completed the tennis court and basketball court reconstructions. We milled down 8 inches of asphalt, removed the footers, and installed new goals and nets. We removed and installed new fence, regraded and added new asphalt, line and color coded the new courts. This was funded by the Sinking Fund. The cost was $285,000, completed in July 2024. And again, Marco Suarez was the project manager. In the Sully District, at Center Ridge North Park, an athletic court renovation, completed basketball court overlay, removed the footers and installed new goals and nets, regraded and added new asphalt, lined and color coded the new courts. This was funded by a combination of the Sinking Fund and ARPA funds, just over $44,000, completed in September 2024, and the project manager was Marco Suarez. Next slide. At the Flat Lick Maintenance Shop, we moved forward with the first phase of the Zero Waste Initiative. So we installed the new trash compactor for Zero Waste Phase 1 implementation. We constructed a 30-foot by 40-foot concrete pad and installed the electrical hookup for the compactor. This was funded by the General County Construction Fund, just over $100,000, completed December 2024, and the project manager was Marco Suarez. It was countywide. So we replaced numerous irrigation pump stations countywide. We installed new irrigation pump stations at the following 11 parks to service rectangle and diamond fields. We modernized the irrigation systems to increase efficiencies in water resources, cost savings, and of course, to improve the field conditions. The pumps were well beyond their life cycle, some of them working off of county pressure. This was funded by Sinking Fund. The cost was just over $630,000, completed December 2024, and the project manager was Marco Suarez. Next slide. Any questions?
So before you questions, I just want to put you on not on the hook because you know the answer to it. Kyle, you do. Leaned over and said, basically, are all of the rest of your staff, this is what he said verbatim, are all the rest of your staff asleep and Marcos is the
not-
only person
that's
working?
not
He
what I
answered that
said.
one.
And I reached over and said, she doesn't have that many people. So could you please explain how many people that work for you that would manage projects like this?
2 project managers.
2 project managers. There's a, for all of the projects that we have to do in the park system. Okay, I just want to make the point.
The area managers picking sometimes.
Yes, we saw that.
Can't believe Kyle would ask a question like that.
Yeah, me
It was
neither.
softball. I just like, I literally said, she doesn't have anybody. I did want to also point out, this is kind of the culmination. If you remember last year, we came and we had the courts conversation. We talked about the focus on trying to get some of the other courts because we focused on pickleball for so long. So this is probably the first time that we're looking at, really putting money where our mouth is for that.
Great. Are there any more questions? Hearing none, I will adjourn the Park Operations Committee.
Thank you. Ken, before we go into the budget committee, Faisal joined the call, so I want to read him in. Faisal, can you please state your name and where you're calling from?
Hi, this is Faisal Khan. I'm at my residence in Providence District.
Yeah, I move that Mr. Khan's voice may be adequately heard in his location.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. And guess I need to do number 2 again from the beginning. Pursuant to Park Authority's Policy 111 for remote participation in public meetings, I move that Faisal Khan may be permitted to participate remotely in this meeting because it comports with the policy we adopted. A physical quorum is present here at the Park Authority Boardroom 9th floor, Arity Building. Do I
I
have a
second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. All right, Ken, back over to you.
And Quincy, I will call the budget committee to order. Turn it over to you all.
Thank you very much, Mr. Quincy. Michael Peter, I'm the Administration Division Director, and I have with me now for our second time, Kelly Sackett, our budget strategist. So we are going to go over sort of our omnibus items here tonight. We have several things we'll be going through. We'll be discussing our second quarter review, let you know where we are as of the end of December, what our projections look like and what has been shared across the street as far as our third quarter is concerned. We'll go into a little more depth on the county executive's proposed budget. And then finally, we have a monopole item that we'll be bringing on the end there. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Kelly Sackett to get us started on second quarter.
Good evening, everybody.
This job.
First up is the information item 1, which is the second quarter budget review.
Is your microphone on?
Kelly, can you? Move my big old water bottle. Okay, can you use that better? Oh, yes. Yes,
I mean,
okay.
it's fine for me. I think the main question is people online.
Okay. Okay, in this slide, we're comparing the first 6 months of FY 2025 to FY 24 and the first 6 months of 2025 to the current budget. The FY 24 reflects the revenue from RecPac, which we will no longer see. The net variance of FY 25 to FY 24 is 1.5 million. This is primarily due to increased compensation from the cost of living adjustment, COLA, for merit and non-merit employees, as well as longevity and performance increases. Operating expenses have also increased, but like the compensation increase, it was something that we would expect due to inflation. Our net variance compared to FY 25 to our current budget is at 50% of the overall, which is what we would expect to be since it's about halfway through the year, or it is halfway through the fiscal year. Recovered costs are currently about 1/3, but we still expect to meet the recovered cost budget by year end. Next slide, please. Information item 2 is the 2025 second quarter budget review for the Park and Operating Fund, Park Revenue and Operating Fund. This slide breaks down the revenue and expenses by cost center for the Revenue and Operating Fund. Rec activity revenues do not reflect the class sales. These sales began a couple weeks ago, so you won't see that impact until Q3. Rec centers continue to increase memberships, and we should begin to start seeing the fee increase impacts soon. The expenses included in rec centers include encumbrances for future months, which causes expenses to be slightly inflated compared to what has actually been spent. RMI will be picking up the pace in the upcoming warmer months, but is performing as expected. Golf, despite a snowy winter, is still exceeding the net revenue at this time last year. This slide depicts that revenue over the past 2 quarters is in line with the previous year trends, other than this anomaly in FY 2022. But other than that, we're seeing that things are pretty steady quarter by quarter. Revenue is slightly higher in both quarters of FY 25 than FY 24. Of course, our largest spikes will occur during the 3rd and 4th quarters. Next slide, please. This slide depicts the expenditures and comparing them quarter by quarter. Similar to revenue, our expenditures are in line with the trends from the previous quarters. Both quarters' expenditures in FY 25 are slightly lower than FY 24. Slide, please. In this slide, we're looking at net revenue for the revenue fund. There's really no surprise. Same type of trend that we've seen over the quarters in previous years. We are tracking slightly less negative than FY 24 in the 2nd quarter. And of course, 3rd quarter is what we're all looking forward to. Next slide, please. Like the slide that we reviewed for the general fund, this slide compares the first 6 months of FY 2025 to FY 2024 and to the year-to-date budget for the revenue and operating fund. As we discussed in the past few slides, the results in the first 6 months of this fiscal year are similar to those in previous years, just slightly better in both revenue and expense. The first 6 months compared to the budget is about where we would expect it to be. Negative 58% for revenue, negative 48% for expenses. Again, revenue will pick up next quarter.
Before you go on to this one, there was the actual board item itself, which I don't have in front of me, so I'm going off of memory. There was some kind of comment about there was a transfer of funds or how funds were allocated or described from rec activities to rec centers. I'm remembering the board item right.
Yes. You'll see in the board item that rec activities as a variance of $777,000. That's due to a permanent accounting adjustment that moved passes and recreation class revenue from this cost center to the individual rec centers.
Okay, so that's just money going from one pocket to the next. It doesn't really it doesn't signify a change in it. Okay. So rec centers are still up. They're just up. So really what they're really up, if we look at it from last year to this year, they're up a smaller increment, which I think was like, it's around 400K.
It's about 310K, but yeah.
So then my question is what revenue growth we are seeing in rec centers and golf, is that primarily just driven by the fee increases we just had, or are we actually seeing like growth in use?
Come on up, kids.
Okay. Yeah. So like,
Come.
You need to be heard.
People, you gotta be heard.
Up to,
And Ryan, do you need to come up too? You can sit here. You can sit over there if you want next to Mike.
This is Josh Coleman, Park Services Division Director. On the Park Services side, rec center side, it's growth both in terms of memberships continuing to grow and seeing a growth in the overall number of members, as well as when we talk about class and camp registration, that there's continued growth, particularly on the camp side, and the demand for camps, coupled with the fee increases passed in January. So as an example, the January membership sale which you won't see the numbers until third quarter. We were up about $300,000 in memberships, which is both growth in memberships and the fee increases tied to membership prices. Similar phenomenon with camps, enrollment from the first 4 days of camp registration, outpacing the previous years, fee increases on the program side, and that growth driving revenue.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yes, from Ryan Carmen, Golf Division Director. From a golf course standpoint, the trend in rounds is still there. We're sustaining our rounds of golf for sure. Weather will always impact that, being an outdoor sport. But the rise in greens fees paired with the sustained rounds, if not more, we do have tactics based on leveraging technology to grow those rounds, is still happening. So we're going to see the fruit of that labor, if you will, once the weather breaks.
So when you're talking about growth, just because I don't want to leave it to make it seem like we raise fees, we have more people. When we're projecting out growth, so we're overperforming what we projected to be at, which is how we set our fees to. Is that a correct assumption?
Generally put some growth assumptions
Yes.
into our projections every year. So it's both the fee increases and some growth projections. Without having all the numbers in front of me, I can't say how much more of the
Okay.
growth we saw from like this last quarter is outpacing the projection.
No, I mean, my main question, concern at this point was just, it's not completely dominated by fees going up.
Not just fee increases.
Okay.
Correct.
Say it, could you repeat what you just said?
Yeah, we currently have the highest membership count that we've had in rec centers right now today. So
But following up on Kyle's question, just so I understand your answer, in terms of the golf courses, what's reflected here in terms of the first 2 quarters, is that more fee increase and you're projecting in the future, you're gonna have increased rounds? Or because you were talking about technology and ways to increase rounds kind of projected forward? Or have you increased did the number of rounds increase in some significant way in the previous 2 quarters?
Not significantly. In fact, kind of to the opposite degree, which was weather-based. FY 24 rounds were less than FY 23. However, when you look at January and December, the decrease in rounds was strictly weather because it was winter.
Right.
So maybe, I'm sorry.
No, I'm willing to, but that would seem to indicate that the increased revenue on the golf side was mostly from increased fees. But we
At least
can
for now.
project
For now.
but we can project moving forward. We believe we'll have an increase in number of rounds as well as fees.
That is obviously the hope, yes,
Okay.
of course.
You'll see a little bit more on that when we get to the third quarter here in just a moment, and you'll show that our projections are a combination of growth and additional fees, that we are beating our original projections by a little bit.
Okay, good deal. Thank you.
Okay, action item number 1, FY 2025 third quarter review. This is the general fund. For action item number 1, we are seeking board approval for our third quarter general fund recommendations. Snow removal is $66,000. We had 3 major storms this winter that were unbudgeted. The $66,000 reflects the expenses for the first 2 storms. It includes overtime as well as lodging for the team. It also includes operating items such as ice melt and shovels. We are collecting the costs for the 3rd storm now, and we will be adding that to our request. We expect it to be similar to the first 2 storms. Summer concert series for $280,000. We are trying to recoup the upcoming budget cuts as well as required audio-visual increase costs. Security, $164,000. Our expense outlay for security has been increased due to vandalism and other unwanted activities at our parks and facilities. We have been forced to use private contractors who are more expensive than when we were previously using police overtime.
And is the reason we've got
Coverage.
to make that shift because police have decided not to take up those overtime shifts? Because
Okay, on the next slide, please.
Go back for just
Sorry.
one second there. We also have a request that has $0 attached to it. These are the initial 3 positions to support our equity initiative. And in discussion with the Department of Management and Budget and the other folks across the street, we had agreed if we could add these 3 positions, we could fund them from the existing equity funding pool that's already been appropriated by the board. So that's, as we said in the budget item, it's a system manager, an IT system manager, a program lead to lead this whole implementation, as well as statistical and data specialist to really help us in a fine way focus on the analysis needed to make sure that we are moving to serve the right populations who are underserved throughout the county.
Do you want questions on these now, or is there more background before we get to these?
Mr. Quincy, you can take questions if.
You can take questions. Let's do it
So with respect
individually.
to the summer concert series, to the extent we do not get additional money in the third board review, then that would presumably lead to a reduction in this calendar year's summer concerts.
So because of the timing for the budget cuts, we had to sign contracts prior to. So we told them that no matter what you pick,
Who's them?
them is DMB, Department of Management Budget, and the county. If you pick that, then we still have to do it this year. We can't ruin relationships and cancel stuff. So we had to do that. So that's this, amount. I mean, if it doesn't get funded, then we are canceling, but we're canceling budget, contracts and all of that type of stuff. Because technically the budget has it for 6-7 sites per location. 7 sites per location.
And we are actively working with our colleagues, Department of Management Budget right now through, all of this. So.
On this slide, so what we're asking for anyone listening on the equity positions, is just the permission to create, because that's what we need to do from DMB, is get permission to create 3 positions. So where's the funding coming from? We're taking the consultant study that they're continuing, that's what's the word I'm looking for? That's funding that that's baked into our budget.
Correct,
and we're just now repurposing that.
Yeah, that's correct.
All right.
This will be the last time. I mean, that funding has been repurposed about the third.
Right,
child
if
of,
we get permission to
right.
do this would then become.
It would move it up into personnel and then it would no longer be for contracts and things like that.
And then one other question here, now that I'm disputing any of the items on the list, just knowing our maintenance challenge generally and the kind of one-time funding nature of this pot of money, what was the thinking for not?
You'll see more of that when we talk through our Fund 3010, which is the county construction fund, where we do address some of those maintenance issues.
Okay.
But in terms of just so I understand, in terms of the equity position, are those in theory funded in the proposed budget?
Okay, so
You are creating positions.
Okay, so the proposed budget that we had, the equity, the 880 roughly amount with a couple of positions, that was put in the funding. That's not in the county budget. That did not get funded. The 2026 budget.
Right.
In our 5-year plan, one of the things is we need somebody to hire the people, get that system, whatever. So the 3 positions were the first thing. And so that's why we put them into this one. So we'll have 3 people to start the whole, but that's not that first thing that you guys saw. That was not funded. So we're hoping to put something in for carryover so we get that funded and carryover if it doesn't make it into the budget through, this whole budget process.
But the answer to your question, Mike, is yes, because it wasn't one of the things that were in the county executive's cut list.
Okay, it's a not cut, and therefore it's theoretically, barring some change, these are funded, these
Will be in the base
Be
next
in
year.
the base.
still, it'll be-
Dollars
the
are
base will be-
there, just right now they're not directed.
I just didn't want
towards
to hire
the
people
office.
based on carryover. I was,
No,
No. This is
I was,
this is not a position. This is not a money ask. It's just sometimes they can get positions
I
allocated.
was just
for carryover,
making
yes.
sure.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, the money is already in the baseline because it's the money they gave us a couple of years ago to do the study the first time, and that has been that's the word recurring.
There we
I
go.
couldn't think of before. Recurring funding for a couple of years now.
Sir, did you have something?
No.
Any more questions on, Fund 10001? For consensus to move this forward?
Yes.
Okay. To you.
you. Also associated, you can see here the third quarter projections broken out by the requested adjustments between compensation and general operating. Our current net budget cost to the county was 37.4 million. With the requested adjustments, it is 37.9 million.
And of course, we will report back on the process and what happens with these third quarter requests.
Sure, it'll be great news.
Any questions on this? Consensus to move it forward?
Yep. Okay. Action item number 2, FY 2025 third quarter review, General County Construction Fund. Action item number 2 reflects the third quarter recommendations for the General County Construction Fund. $595,000 for our continued efforts for the zero waste. This includes 2 additional areas or 2 areas. $865,000 for the athletic field WPFO.
And if I can just join in there, you have background on this in your board items, but this is part of what we're talking about in terms of trying to address the maintenance issues that we've had. So we have identified this as an area that is a personnel pressure for us, with the whole thought process when all of these positions when they're hired, there are 42 positions that are intended to be charged over to the General County Construction Fund for athletic fields. And we've identified a shortfall between what they cost and the amount that's available in the General County Construction Fund for that.
So
Find WPFO for people listening.
That is charging another part of the county for our services. So
work performed for others.
thank you. Yeah.
Or others, right?
Let me ask a question along those lines. So we are doing work for others that either we're not getting paid for or is costing us more than the reimbursement we're getting.
In this case, the way that the budget is set up is those 42 positions were intended to charge to our field funds in the General County Construction Fund. As that was a way that some of the rationale behind that was back in
2004.
Yeah, 2004, as the research that we were, able to get back that far. And at that point in time, of course, the positions cost a lot less, and that field fee contribution, as well as the general fund that is a mixture there, that was more field fee than general fund at that point. The expenses have grown, but that basis, it's $3,223,000, Kim, I believe. We got a little bit more in there this past year.
Yeah, this is it's our funding. It's just that we don't have enough money because we're charging so much for the people to do the projects.
Yeah.
And so this is how WPFO can be a project killer and makes things that the math doesn't math when you're like, why did this fence cost this much money? It's like, this is the fence plus the people, plus the this, plus the that. And so fence can end up costing $300,000 when the fence is only $100,000.
When
We
we,
made those numbers up.
as I recall, when we talked about some of the budget stuff,
Mhm.
we actually talked about how we'd have to do this probably more because there'd be money out of different projects,
Mhm.
which would make them seem more expensive because of what the process we're going through.
So this funding is for maintenance of athletic fields.
Yes.
So within the county construction fund, there's funding for maintenance of park fields. That includes the mowing that's done, any treatments to fields, projects on fields, and the staffing costs. So as the costs for mowing, contracted services continue to go up, the money that we have available to pay our staff is going down. So we're asking for them to make us whole so that we can pay the staff that are doing this work as well as pay for the services that we
And do the
contract.
same level or higher. So our level of service, right, Sarah, is going down because we're not able to do as
If
many
we're not
projects.
funded
Right.
for this, with this additional money, we will need to make some decisions on athletic fields on what we are not going to do for the remainder of the
We either
year.
have to cut back on the maintenance or we have to shift money from other uses.
Right.
There were previously balances in this fund, so this is an issue that has really emerged over this cycle, especially as we've started to see, yes, we have to spend because those costs, as Sarah was saying, have gone up so much. And it just becomes a glaring deficiency. There are two different inputs there and there's not enough of an output.
In my recollection, this is, I mean, Chris is very familiar with this. Well, yeah. About completely just something else. For what it's worth, I don't know about anybody else, and I don't know about the public. I was really confused at first when I read rec center wellness projects.
Oh,
I didn't think of
name.
I didn't think of wellness as being the, oh, we're gonna repair the buildings.
I don't think we named that. I think that right, it kind of came from, I don't know who named it.
We may have.
It's just
That's
one of
what
those
they-
things that at first I thought we were spending $5 million on like doing things for people at the rec centers. And I was like, oh, wait,
This
this
is-
is actually the life.
That gives us a better chance of getting the funding.
I don't know that it does. I guess my point
Understood.
was
It's building.
actually saying, hey, buildings are falling apart unless you spend money.
That's
Project.
what it is.
I-
That's what it
But it just, okay.
I want to spend a little time on zero waste. What is, does this have any relation to, in the budget request that we propose for whatever fiscal year we're arguing about now, 26, is that the right one? That was a $1.8 million for phase 2 to make the ask for zero waste and recycling whole. Does this, so this 600,000 is a third of that ask, or is it completely unrelated?
This is the one-time portion of
It's
that.
the one-time portion of the ask. So it says 2 areas on the screen right now. My understanding right now is in what we're calling phase 1, we are only doing 2 areas. So is this 2 more areas? Okay, so we'll go from 2 to 4 areas.
That's correct. Yeah, this would be phase 2.
Once we get this.
But that's not, we haven't
This
got,
is just, these are the capital costs, which are trucks.
So if we get this money, it really doesn't change the number of areas we're serving. We'll still be just serving 2 areas.
Until we get the staff to be able to manage.
Okay. So then my question becomes, for whatever reason, the 2 areas I got picked, I'm not going to call them out here, but there are more than 2 areas in the entire county. They got picked for phase 1. As of right now, they're not in the budget. The rest of that ask isn't in the budget, so we're not going to be able to expand it. The likelihood that it's going to come in the budget on the back end because the supervisor's added is something approximately 0. I do not like at all the idea that in perpetuity, 2 areas of the county are going to get different trash pickup than the rest of our parks in the county. For an entity that talks so much about equity and not creating disparities from one area, one park to the next, like that's anathema to what we're trying to do here. So I don't like that as a plan going forward. I understand that ultimately we want to get that fully funded. That's a little bit out of our hands. So I think we need to be coming up with a different plan for this than just forever and always until the board gets its act together and funds the rest of this request. That there's only 2 parts of the county that are going to get trash maintenance at this particular level, that the additional funding allows.
there's two parts of that. There's 2 parts of the trash and recycling. There's the trash part and there's a recycling part.
Yep.
The trash part, I'm picking up what you're putting down. I get that. The recycling part is an ordinance that we have to show good faith effort that we are abiding by the county ordinance.
Mm-hmm.
And so including it in the budget every year, and when it was funded, that's the good faith effort of
Right, we're
abiding
trying
by
to
the-
make progress.
the
Yep.
the ordinance. Once you're abiding by in the 2 areas, once you're doing the recycling, because the whole ordinance is a recycling bin next to a trash can.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're sending out a crew, you have to have a different crew to get recycling. You might as well be picking up the trash. There might be a little bit of stuff that's got a wiggle room for trash. I don't know if you want to talk about whether or not we want to just say, okay, we're gonna not do anything until we get the full funding. But the idea, here's the problem.
Mm-hmm.
We are so underwater in every, no offense, in every maintenance category.
Sure.
That if I were to say, okay, this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna use those funds to get our heads above water in maintenance. And then when we get fully funded, we'll go do trash and recycling. It's never gonna be able to be extricated back from that because it's now gonna be fully into the maintenance that we need to be doing all the time. I get it.
You have sold me on absolutely nothing, but I understand where you're coming from.
But plus also, we do get some experience from having the two areas in terms of how we're going to roll that out and extrapolate that to to our
And that's,
entire.
that's great
Maybe-
for 1 year.
I think that the thing is, I understand what you're saying. It's what are we not going to do if we're going to do this?
Exactly.
It's, we can't add this. We can't add this on for the 4 other areas.
Right.
So if we want to do this, we need to stop doing something else. So that would be the trade-off. What's more important? Is it picking up trash on the weekends, or is it going to be mowing? Or is it going to be?
Well, I know there's a certain supervisor who very much would like to see trash picked up on the weekend, so hopefully he'll advocate in his budget for increased funding there. But that aside,
So one, if we don't believe that funding for 2 additional areas through the budget process is going to happen, maybe we should reevaluate which the 2 areas that we're currently focused on. If we believe those are going to be, and maybe we should look at high equity, whatever kind of areas that have been last in line for a lot of services. Maybe they should be first in line for certain services. Second, if I understand I may totally misunderstand what you're saying, but based on what I just heard, are we suggesting that we should spend $595,000 doing the one-time purchases of equipment we will not have the people to work with?
So the idea was always that we have to, it's like a sequential thing. So we're gonna ask for the other, the 2 things. The idea when we were putting this, correct me if I'm wrong, do we know? No.
We didn't
we didn't know at the
We didn't
time.
know
because
at
it was
And the
prepared
conversation
before
with
February
BMB
18th.
is the one-time cost, trucks, compactors.
I mean,
It
that's
takes
the
us a year
bigger
to
thing,
get.
like, is this, the asks here gotta be one-time things.
But it also has to be ordered. So it does, just because we get it this year does not mean that we can't start, like, it might take a year and a half to get the equipment. So even if we don't get the staff, if we get the staff and they ready to hit the ground running next year, we need to pre-bought all of the equipment. So last time I think it was the opposite, right? We got the one time, did we get the one time and the staffing sort of at the same time?
Yeah.
So it was like, wait, there was a delay in getting the stuff. So like you just saw, we just got the pad, but we had gotten the staffing before. So this is,
And if we got this, it would help us anyway, right? So we could use more trucks right now. We could use these compactors. So it's not like this would be a waste. They could still be used by the existing. crew
So
we have.
So I understand, first, taking what you said last, we could still use it. Is that where, in the 2 areas that are getting service now? So they just get
2 new,
even 2
Two
new
new.
areas.
2 new
Two new
areas.
areas.
Yep.
Even though we don't have the staff, we could somehow still use them
We
there.
still use the compactors. We could still
still
use
Because there's still staff picking the trash up now anyway, and
Right.
now they're getting
an aging
better
equipment.
equipment.
And not enough trucks.
I just don't want to build a firehouse and not staff it. I'm just trying to balance out that we don't spend a chunk of money. And for 3 years, we have equipment sitting around that we never got to staff correctly.
I don't think we're gonna get it.
It's never gonna happen.
Okay. Right, well,
But you don't know, just because of, yeah. Sorry, you doing okay back there?
This is no complaint to Kim.
No, it's
This
not.
is-
It's there. Yeah, hold on.
Any other questions regarding 30010? There consensus to move this forward?
yes.
Action item number 3, fund 8,000 or 80,000 revenue and operating fund. Action item number 3, request board approval for the FY 2025 revenue and operating fund adjustment to budget. You can see here that our current budget versus our baseline projections. The 1.7 million increase in revenue is primarily due to growth as well as anticipated additional revenue from fee increases. We've seen some of the fee increases, but we will be seeing more.
So that's what we were talking a little bit about earlier, that's sort of the margin that we're now projecting, that we had done our original budget and then our revision, and you can see all of those, that we went from 59.3 original back in September of the year that all of this was proposed, adjusted it in the first quarter to the 60.8 million, and now this is what we're projecting to be our final adjustment for this year, getting us to the $62.5 million.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Question. On the expense side, the increase in expenditures is primarily due to anticipation of Mount Vernon opening in mid-May. So we had broken those costs out here.
Our overall operating expenses for the rest of the system, as you saw in our second quarter a few minutes ago, we're keeping that relatively at the same line, even just a little bit less. But we thought it was important to show first that baseline projection and then adding Mount Vernon into the mix. Even though we're not opening on April 1, we are projecting a full quarter of staffing associated with that as we move into all of those different pieces there, but we wanted to go ahead and make sure that we have the budget adjustment and that we can show you what that impact is.
So you just covered. No, it's good. Thank you. So the net increase to the overall budget would be $143,000.
Questions? Locked out this thing.
An action item, I think.
That's an action. I know. I'll make sure we have any questions. Okay, is there a consensus to move this item forward?
Yes. Yes.
So this is our opportunity to quickly go over the county executive's proposed budget. I think, certainly Diane had shared some of the information previously. Here we are, it's February 2025. He has released his budget. And we're seeing all of the outreach. We're seeing the town halls, all across the system here. So here's how it impacts us in terms of what we originally had put together, both for our non-recommended reductions as well as the baseline increases we requested. Next slide, please. Again, just reminding everyone that this is the original budget development guidance that the county executive was not looking for anything additional added to the base, except we were looking at new facilities, contract rate increases, or critical county operations. Next slide, please. Overall, if you remember, the county executive had asked for all departments to come up with a total of 10% of potential budget reductions on the general fund side. That was a painful process for us as we went through all of it. Our target was $3.5 million, and in the county executive's proposed budget, it's about 42% of that. Almost $5 million is on the reduction list. And to put that in perspective, the overall county budget reductions were about $60 million. So we're still a small portion of that. Was that about 2%, 2.5%?
2.5%.
Thank you. And we'll just walk through real quickly where those were taken. None of these, will be a surprise as we went through all of this, but just to give you a status level. Next slide, please. Also, our budget requests. We did have 2 budget requests associated with this. They were spread between the general fund and the county construction fund. We had requested here $2.356 million, and none of that is in the base. Next slide, please. And then this is the other side of that, zero trash, waste and recycling, and then also our OBI, our maintenance funding. That's another $2.1 million that is not in the base.
So what was the total OBI?
Total OBI, it's this 567 plus. Can you go back one slide, please? So about almost $1.6 million.
That's geared towards specific parks or just
specific properties that either have been acquired or have substantially new uses. As we went through that, in fact, I think we even have a slide that shows that. If you can scroll through just a little bit. Go ahead, forward. Again, please. One more. There we go.
Okay, so this is what it was going to be geared for. And I know we've asked for this OBI bucket of money. How long have you been around here? 3 years, 3 budget cycles, and I think we've gotten $0 for this.
We received 201,000.
We received, I'm sorry,
201,000 in the first year. I think it was more of a welcome note for Jay that we received $201,000.
Not Patriot. We got money and funding and staff, right? Did we? For Patriot Park and Rec?
Not in the last 4 years.
Are any of these parks Because all this stuff has already happened.
No,
Right. No?
no. So out of here, and correct me, jump in, the Overlook Ridge is Lorton Landfills, the one that we
Right,
talked
right,
about.
right,
So
yeah.
that hasn't even gone to construction yet. They're in design. The Scotts Run Athletic Field and restroom is a project that's on BOS property and that they would like us to maintain. Jump, Ruxall is,
All right, that's fine.
Okay.
For the sake of everyone's time and patience. There are some things on this list that we have not either made the improvement or opened or whatever. So we have an opportunity to pump the brakes on some of these things and not expend money, both on I guess, a construction basis to actually do the thing, which would then incur this maintenance cost, because it's basically what we're asking for is the future maintenance cost of doing all these things. So there is an opportunity. So maybe in the next meeting, you could come back and talk about that in a little bit specifics, what our plan is. Some of these, the horse is already out of the barn, the thing's already been built. It's like everything else, we're just going to figure it out. So maybe we talk a little bit about that as well, how money gets moved around and that sort of thing, and robbing Peter to pay Paul's situation here. So if we could bring that during our next meeting, that I think would be helpful.
We've already talked a little bit about the request that we had in there again for zero waste, and you saw that just a second ago. It's split between general and county construction fund, and a portion of that, of course, we've put in one-time requests for third quarter.
I think it would be helpful when we're having that conversation, because I think people see this and they're like, I don't understand how this could equal an OBI. We can pull out understanding, and I know it's connecting dots, understanding how we have a maintenance contract for mowing. So if we add in grass, that's increasing the contract for mowing that we have to pay. If we convert to synthetic turf field, there's costs for contracting for all of that, and for what's it called? Yes, GMAX testing and all of that, like how each of those, and considering what we're talking, I mean, this is not a ton for all of the stuff that come in. Playgrounds need to be inspected. If it's a pour in place, it has to be, like, every single thing that we're putting on adds actual dollars to contracts, which is what we're talking about with things like the WPFO. We're talking about the whole maintenance memo that we had. It's what gets us underwater.
Scotts Run Athletic Field is a reason why we don't have enough money in athletic fields, is because that's a new amenity that's costing us about $50,000 a year that we didn't get funding to maintain, but we're maintaining it anyway.
Next slide. So this then shows what the baseline originally was when we had worked through all of this as we were identifying what we thought was going to happen, and then we see what has actually happened in what the county executive has proposed. You can see the difference there. So that includes reductions in the baseline, and of course does not include the additions. Now, there are some small additions in the overall budget. We got a little bit for contract rate increases, and certainly personnel has increases associated both with COLA increase of 2%, performance and longevity increases, as well as the impact of some compensation, some classification regrades for our park and rec specialist classification as well. Next slide.
Josh. Sorry, keep going.
Yeah, so this just shows what the overall non-recommended general fund reductions were, $3.5 million. Again, this is almost $1.5 million that was taken as part of the proposed budget. And you can see the summary here, and we'll talk real quickly about them as we kind of go through. Next slide, please.
Before you move on off the slide, can you remind me, the ecologist position was IMA, right?
Yes.
So what is that? That seems low for a position. So help me remember what that actually was.
Go forward a couple. We have that.
Oh, okay, you have it. Then I'll shut up and you can bring it up when you get to it.
So this is the first one is the summer entertainment series. I know we had taken that off of our list of non-recommended budget reductions in the process across the street. It came back on with $136,000 taken for that.
So if
Were
this
we
is
asking for
taken,
more than this, though?
Can you go back a slide?
We're asking, go ahead, go back a slide, please.
Right, but in
We-
third quarter, the money we're asking for is more than the cut.
We have our baseline, we have a baseline budget that really pays for essentially the performers.
Huh.
And each year we have one-time requests that we move forward for our sound and AV and sort of the technical requirements associated with it.
Okay.
So that's a combination of those two
Got it.
as we move forward.
One thing I noticed, and I think this is in the specialist, but this is programmatically, we had, our non-recommended amount was 109. They took 136. I thought we had gone to zero.
We had
not?
gone to zero. We had gone to zero and presented a couple of other
Okay, I was just, so this list doesn't reflect our final.
that one, since it was a comparison, I mean, we could have shown it up there as zero, but the total amount is still the $3.5 million. Those things where we made some adjustments, those weren't taken.
we just added it back in since it was something they took. But
Right.
when we showed it
I was just
before,
trying to
it
look
was
at,
crossed
I
out.
was just trying to look at variances. So does that affect anything else? Because this, where we added it, I'm trying to look at variances of what our recommendation was versus what they did.
That's the only one.
That's the
I
only
like
one.
that
That was the only one.
Okay.
Where they
And-
I like that they took $800 less on the ecologists. I don't like that.
Yeah, that variance doesn't affect other things. We had
Okay.
increased a couple of things, but they didn't take those lines.
Okay, that's why, okay, thank you.
Forward, please. Next slide. Talked about that. Next slide, please. So what we're seeing here, again, these were all hard, non-recommended reductions after a year where we received more than $2.1 million in maintenance and athletic field fee funding. Having to put these back out there, this does still show that we will have more than we've had in the past. But remember, the BOS added $890,000 last year, and now we were forced to put out their $200,000 reduction, which is the amount that was taken. Next slide, please. We had proposed to reduce our athletic field mowing from twice a week to one time a week, and that was not taken. Next, please. Now, this one, park open space mowing, this was taken, and Kim and her team have, I think we've talked about that, about the different multiple ways that we classify our different mowing. So this will have an impact. Certainly, we have a lot of calls and emails related to mowing, and this $129,000 was taken in the baseline. Next slide. Porta Johns. This will reduce our cleaning services to pre-COVID standards. So when we have Porta Johns, those Porta Johns will now be cleaned twice a week, and I think they were 3 times a week. Okay. So we've reduced them a third, and you can see that that amount was taken, $48,960. Next slide. Athletic court maintenance, Marco Suarez did a lot, as we saw, earlier. And this is a key area where we have issues that we've talked about here. This would essentially affect us by really bringing us down to being able to renovate 2 courts per year with the associated expenses with trying to keep up with the cracks and the other issues that we've seen. So this is a $250,000, almost a little over a half of our athletic court maintenance and renovation budgets taken. Next slide, please. Trail maintenance funding also by 50%. The BOS added 150 in FY25. Our current budget is $500,000. This takes it down in half. Next slide. Fortunately here, our current budget for general park and facility maintenance, this is also something that is in the county construction fund, as we were talking about earlier. The current budget there is $937,000 with a significant amount that was added by the board this last fiscal year, and they elected to not take any of our reductions here. Next slide. This is the item about our foundation funding and increasing the support that comes from the foundation specifically to cover the positions. So this is Bobby and her team that essentially this will be adding $300,000 to cover their salaries first and foremost. That was taken.
If I can make a comment, I have been contacted by at least one friends group who was very concerned about the prospect of a 20% admin fee that would reduce the impact of their donation. I explained the situation to them, told them why it was potentially necessary, but just wanted to put that on.
Yep. Next slide, please. This is going to what we were talking about as far as this is an E status. So this isn't full benefits. This is almost $65,000 is actually the actual cost of the position that's in there. So this does take away some of our IMA focus. Still a big program, but this is one of those areas where this is a vacant position and they elected to take that. Next slide, please. Heritage Resource Specialist. This is in our Heritage Conservation branch in the Planning and Stewardship Division. And here this is an entire position. This is also a vacant position. And you can see we had identified what the impact would be, and they've elected to take that as well.
Just to remind me, I know we talked about it when we were putting the cuts together. How many people like this do we have left at this point?
The Heritage Resource Specialist.
Yeah.
Four. Well, 3 plus a non-merit.
Next slide, please. This was the one that I think caught a lot of attention as it went over there, closing one nature center and one historic site. And this was not explored and not taken. Next slide, please. Closing the nature preserve parking lots. This would have involved a reduction in force of 3 limited term employees. And this. Yeah, you can see the security increase on the other side of that. This position is also what we talked about. This was removing or eliminating a part-time photographic specialist, and this position was taken.
Just a question. It's $600, so it's like not a big thing, but why are they taking more than what we threw out there?
The calculation is based on what the baseline will be in 26 as opposed to what it was calculated in 20.
Got it. Okay.
So slight increase.
Yep. No, that makes total sense.
I've seen that before.
Next slide, please. This is the area also, Mr. Hackman, I think that we were talking about WPFO wise. This was the big item that we had put forward there to charge additional salaries in the development division, which this would have been just about the entire development division, bringing it to having to WPFO to bond, and this was not taken. Next slide. Any questions about the budget?
Yeah, I've got 2 more. This isn't really about our budget. It's a potential impact. And I don't know if this cut happened or not, but I know FC.dot got some cuts. They have some kind of fund that we get trail money for, I think, right? I don't know if that was one of them that was touched. Do we know anything about that, or if there's any impact to us related to that? Okay. The answer is we don't know yet. And then my other question is, I noticed.
I doubt it is because it's not baseline funding.
Okay.
So it's construction funding that's usually coming at carry.
All right, so
We'll look at.
but probably not an additional impact. Fair enough. And then we never talked about equity here. It was an ask that we made. We laid out the 5-year plan. I think it was a month. I don't remember how many weeks ago, month ago, to the Board of Supervisors at a HHS committee meeting. So given that it's not in this budget at all, unlikely to come back around and be in before the supervisors vote on it. What's kind of the ramifications for that timeline, kind of moving through implementing the plan? Is it simple as it's now a 6-year plan and nothing happened this year?
So I would say, if we were to get the funding at another time, in third quarter, carryover, something along those lines, that we still remain relatively on track with the 5-year plan. If it was to slip into the next fiscal year, we'd be talking about a year delay to the implementation.
Okay, so there's not any add-on effects. It's not getting anything this year doesn't add 2 years for whatever reason. It only.
I'd say it adds a year to the project if we slip by a.
But
But
one thing, losing a year just adds a year. It's not like losing a year adds 18 months.
Well, you losing a year adds a year, but it also adds more money because of the positions and everything costs more
Sure.
next year. So you can't look at those. I think that this year it could probably slip, and Sarah and Josh jump in. It could probably slip because originally it was a little bit of a partial year funding because we need the positions really at the top of this year, right? That's something like the top of this year.
Yeah, I mean, ideally we'd have them July 1 to be starting to
Right.
to hire. I think that's where, if it was in the carryover process, we're talking about a few months of slippage. And so, can we remain close to on track from that? Okay, but you move past that and you're talking about at least a year delay at that point, I think.
Is there something?
I think the other piece besides the staffing is what the most concerning piece is funding for a new system. So the recreation management system that we have right now, the contract will end in 27. And the system could not do its
Calendar year
sliding fee
27 or
scale.
fiscal
Yeah,
year?
December 2027, I think,
December 2026, but we can
extend for one.
extend one more if we needed to.
But we need funding for that
So
system.
that was not included or
It was included as
That was,
well.
that was baked into the equity.
It was a separate request. It goes through a different process for,
when do we
IT
find out about that?
infrastructure.
That will come forward after they are at about the time that they're announcing the third quarter initiatives that are going to be, because they fund the Fund 104 with third quarter money essentially.
I mean, we're talking right now, if we don't get, 2031.
So the initial hope, if we're really hitting the funding marks and the system is coming online, that we'd be talking about the first program Rec Center Access in FY 28,
28,
which is, and as we extend out in the full program, I think finishing in FY 30 or 31, as each program comes online each year was the concept.
And it's really important to note that, obviously we put a lot of, staff have put a lot of, work into this, exercise, and we're keeping our costs, as low as possible. But it can't be like the maintenance, and there's no way to do it without those resources.
Right,
So every
obviously.
year, It's just.
Right, it just
gonna
doesn't
sit there.
happen.
Right, it just
Nothing
doesn't
di-
happen,
Nothing,
correct.
nothing different, no changes. Okay, understood. Questions? We covered it.
One more item now, Mr. Quincy. Just one.
We're almost there. Action item number 4, approval for reallocation of FY 2024 monopole revenue to the Park Improvement Fund. Next slide, please. Slide is a reminder of the cost for caring for our aging assets and the fact that the cost continues to rise. Currently, we have an estimate of $201 million. Next slide, please. The monopole revenue in FY 2024 was 1.02 million. The appropriations are made to the cultural and natural resource management funds, as well as to the summer concert series. So you can see the remaining revenue and how it's broken down by district here. Slide, please.
So essentially what staff have done, and thank you, Maggie, and others who have signed some proffer approvals here. We have been going through our alternative funding source process to identify where we can use proffers and monopole for significant projects that we have in the running here. These have been identified and worked through by staff. So we are asking for, show the monopole numbers there, we are asking for this $844,000 to be approved to move towards these projects.
Now that's it.
That's it.
Ken's little.
That one's an action
Action.
item.
It's an action, yeah.
Yes, no.
Yeah.
Want to make sure that we were sorry. More questions? Okay, is there consensus to move this forward?
Mr. Chairman? Yeah, Rick Healy here.
Okay, Rick?
Yes.
So I know it's my first board meeting here, but when I met with my predecessor, Ron Kendo, and former Mason District Supervisor Penny Groves, they both raised the monopole issue with me. And I'm not comfortable at this point proceeding with this, not knowing what the impact would mean for Mason District and the current use of the funds from the monopole in Mason District.
So the Mason District monopole is different from every other monopole in the system. We understand that there was a commitment made to the community when the pole went up, that the funding that we receive, the revenue we receive from the pole will go directly back into Mason District Park. And our proposal today has all the projects, our projects that would be done at Mason District Park. For every other district, the monopole funding can be used on any project within that district.
But the
Right,
same with
but-
Stratton Woods. I thought Stratton Woods was different. Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, Rick.
Do these proposed funding projects equal the amount of revenue that is brought in by the Mason District monopole?
Yes, what we have listed here, we have the project at Mason District Park totaling just almost $62,000. And part of that allocation that is part of the agreement for Mason District is to allocate that $41,192 to the Mason District Park Summer Concert Series. So those two together equal the $102,000 that it was appropriated for Mason District from the telecom revenue there.
Right. So money in is equal to money out.
That's correct. That's correct.
That's what I needed to hear.
Yeah, Bill.
Let me bring some clarity to this issue. When we've been doing this for years, and the intent always was for, if you had a monopole on a site, for the revenue generated from that monopole, it went back primarily to the improvements on that site specifically. That was the intent. Only after those projects were exhausted were they then looked at for other potential projects, one within your district, two countywide. That's the program. That's what it has been,
Which is what we're doing here.
which is what we're doing here.
No, we're not.
Yeah.
Yes.
Who's
Okay.
Spending in a Mason District.
So the monopole at South Run's money is going to Twin Lakes Golf Course, which would imply that there's absolutely no needs at all at South Run.
Well, and with that, I actually have a proper request for you to sign. Really,
My point is, there's been over time, there's been a recognition that sometimes a need outside of that, but all of the needs of that
Absolutely.
park may not be met.
Always.
But sometimes we go to someplace else in the
Same
district.
thing when we ran short of
Right.
revenue, we
No,
took
just-
all of the monopole.
Right. I'm just,
Put it in
but we
another
can,
place.
we have some flexibility that even if that site may have some needs,
Right,
something else is priority.
exactly. But the entire board makes
Right.
that
I
decision.
just don't want anybody to think that
Not
we're
the
saying South Run is
individual-
completely.
Not
But
the
so I'll
individual-
clarify my earlier statement.
Not the
To say that we are not
individual-
doing anything out of our normal base of operation for this.
That's correct.
Pointer. Other questions?
No.
Consensus to move this forward?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, you can be
Thank
done.
you very much. Are you coming back for a third time?
Yes. As long as you'll have me. Yes.
Yes.
Thank
Want
you.
you.
Hey, Ken, for the record, I handed it to you just a minute and a half late. I'm just saying.
Mostly my fault.
So noted. So noted. If there are no other questions, the budget committee is adjourned.
Right.
You're still up, Ken.
The previous committee chairman didn't manage the time very well.
Love it.
And Quincy, the Planning and Development Committee is
That's good.
right here.
Yes.
Okay.
Good evening, everybody. Brendan Hannafin, the Planning Park Development Director. I'll bring you the fourth quarter 2024 project completion report for the Development Division. I will be brief. Slide, please. Next slide, please. Royal Lakeside Park, shade structure installation. You know, this is a bigger project to do a trail through additional trails through Lakeside Park in the front in the Royal Lake area. This is the part of this project include the installation of a shade structure over an existing picnic area. It's 32 by 32 concrete pad with concrete footers. It's been installed. Now we installed it in December, so we did not put the shade up. So we'll do that in the spring so we'll get wrecked by snow. But the project cost was $48,900, and Beth handled the project, finished it in December. Next slide. Evansville District, McLean Central Park revitalization. This is one of our bigger projects of the year. This included the revitalization of the McLean Central Park, including a pavilion, a significant playground for really all ages, fitness area, accessible parking, stormwater management facilities, trails, and associated site work. Also includes an amphitheater. Funded by the 2020 bond, McLean Community Center, and we did get a sizable grant from the McLean Central Park Playground team, $2.8 million, and it was completed in October by Heather and Adam. Next slide. Libby John Tree. As we ramp up to try to decide how to reimagine this park for its future, we needed to do a lot of repairs to the existing facility to keep it safe. So we completed that this past fall, October. It was $200,000. We did an extensive review of every piece of equipment and determined what could stay for a little while longer and what needed to be replaced or fixed. So that was where the $200,000 came in handy. Next slide. Hunter Mill District, Buckstone Trail improvements. This project included the mill and overlay of approximately 4,500 linear feet of asphalt trail. The project was funded by the money the chairman mentioned earlier, the bicycle and pedestrian improvement projects and maintenance funds. The cost was $148,000. It's completed in November, and Kelly Davis was the manager of that project. Next slide. In the Mason District, Justice Park Picnic Shelter. This included the installation of a picnic shelter. Pretty simple. Project was funded by the 2020 carryover package. The cost was $175,000. Completed in December, and Pat Rosen managed the project. Next slide, please. Munson Hill Trail improvements. This is a mill and overlay of 1,400 linear feet of asphalt trail. This again was bicycle and pedestrian improvement project and maintenance, and we have completed probably 28 of these projects out of the 30-something we have. So we are trying to spend the money as quickly as we can. This was a $28,000 project, completed in December of 2024, and Pat was the project manager. Next slide. In the Mount Vernon District, Mount Eagle Park trail improvements. This was scope of work included the realigning a section of trail to reduce the slope and paving 250 linear feet of gravel trails in Mount Eagle Park, that was glaringly the only piece that wasn't paved. The project was funded by the Board of Supervisors again with the money we just mentioned, and that a part of our annual allocation. And to go to the chairman again, we've been getting this funds through carryover every year, so hopefully we'll get it again this year. Final project cost $24,000, and October 2024 was the completion date. And with Beth,
I assume we have a long list of like shovel-ready projects.
We have them ready to go.
Yeah.
Next slide. McNaughton Field concession restroom facility. Long time coming with this one. This was to build a concession restroom at the McNaughton Field Park, primarily for the Woodlawn Little League. They partnered with us, generated $200,000 to support the construction. So a little over $1 million for the project. It was completed in November. Sienar did a great job with this project, and it was well received by the community when we did the ribbon cutting. It'll be a big help for them to raise funds in the future. Next slide. In Providence District, next slide. Eakin Park Phase 2 Pavilion and Decking. This was a collaboration with the Eakin family to develop park improvements located near the Prosperity Ave entrance within Eakin Community Park. Phase 1 consisted of parking lot improvements, which were completed last year. Phase 2 consisted of a pavilion with a raised walkway and elevated decking made of composite lumber. It's a really neat concept to try to keep it out of the riparian area and keep it from getting too wet. We raised it up. This was funded by donations from the family and General County construction funds. The final cost was $354,000. There is a third phase to this, which is going to be adding commemorative benches and some other things, but nothing big. Next project, please. Tyson's Woods Trail Improvements. The scope of the work was 1,200 linear feet of trails in Tyson's Wood Park, 8 foot wide. We also replaced a trail baller. This is funded by the same fund I've been mentioning to you, $48,000. September 24, and Beth completed the job. The Springfield District, Brook Lake Marina parking lot. This was a big job that included a lot of ADA work. This was mill and pave of the marina parking lot, funded by the 2020 bond, $535,000, and again, it included ADA work. As we go through and we do our parks, we include a lot of ADA work to try to catch up. This was completed in 2020 November of this past year. Isabel was the project manager on it. Next slide. Huntsman Park trail improvements, $176,000, and it was completed in December of 2024, and Pat was the project manager. Next slide. We're coming to the end here. One more. All right, Cub Run Stream Valley Park trail improvements. Again, this was that pot of money from the Board of Supervisors and carryover. 3,500 linear feet of trails, Cub Run Stream Valley Park. Final cost, project cost was $155,000, and it was completed in December. So I think that's my last project. We had 11 projects in the fourth quarter of this calendar year, for 44 for the year. So we had a pretty significant year. We're hoping to do at least that much next year. So any questions?
Just, yes, kudos. It is very nice to see. I noticed up until this very last one, there were a few that were under the initial budget, and I think I made this comment or asked this question last time when you presented on this. I guess it's a continued signal that maybe costs like are coming under control a little bit.
They've certainly settled down quite a bit. When we were estimating some of these projects, it was at a 6% inflation rate, the annual inflation rate. That wasn't the case last year. So some of it has to do with that, and I also think some of the contractors are wanting additional jobs, so they're giving us very good fair pricing.
Are we seeing that, like when you do this in a couple of months, are we going to see that continued trend, or are you seeing something different happen?
I think we'll see it for Mount Vernon Woods when we bring that to completion, and we did see it for McLean Central as well. So some of our bigger projects are having some savings now. We'll see when we start getting into some of these rec centers what the real savings might be, if any.
If any, no, but it's, I mean, any direction in the other way is better.
I do need to caveat it, because I think that the time that we do the scope estimates and the time that we do the CIP is different. So we need to come back and explain. So when we say this is how much we think this is going to cost, from that time to the scope estimate time, the cost has gone up.
Okay.
So between the scope estimate time and the construction time, that time frame is a lot shorter. So it's the escalation between the two. So then we need to come back and sort of explain. So sometimes we can do less projects because we're having to scope stuff out for CIP 3-4 years in advance, 2-3 years in advance type of thing.
Okay.
So it really just depends on it's yes.
Okay.
I would agree. And then it's during the bid process. So we don't bid out all of our projects.
Okay.
The bid process is really tells you where the trends are.
Yeah.
How many people are bidding? If you get two bidders, well, then there's plenty of work out there. They're just gonna give you a big number to see if you'll take it. If there's 12, well, you're gonna get really good pricing, and we've been seeing more bidders. So
Okay.
hopefully, again, it's only anecdotal right now.
Sure.
But it is something.
Yeah, it's better than what it has been. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, comments?
Thanks, sir.
Thank you. The Planning and Development Committee is hereby adjourned.
Thank you, Ken. All right, we are in recess till about 7:30 or so.
Almost
Okay.
keep bidding, but they're never selected.
Keep bidding.
No, bid. This county is, listen, are we off mic?
I don't think we are yet. That's what I was wanted to check. Are we muted?
We muted?
Is everything muted?
She knows who I
We're
am.
now recording again.
That's okay.
All right, everybody, we are back in session. First order of business, Dr. Carter, are you still with us on the online?
Yes, I am.
Okay, great. Can you please state your name and the location from where you're calling?
Yes, this is Cynthia Jacobs Carter calling from my home in Franconia District.
Great, thank you. I move that Dr. Carter's voice will be adequately heard and her location.
Second the motion.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. And then pursuant to Park Authority's Policy 111 for remote participation in public meetings, I move that Dr. Carter be permitted to participate remotely in this meeting because it comports with the policy we adopted and a physical quorum is present here at the Park Authority Boardroom, 9th floor, Heritage Building.
I second the motion.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that motion carries. Now we can get into the rest of our agenda. Deidre, do we have any speakers this evening? Uh-oh. You gotta remember you're on the spot now. All right. What do we got going on here? We are right into admin and action items. First admin item, or only admin item today, is the recommended adoption of the minutes of the January 22nd, 2025 Park Authority Board meeting. Do I have can I have a motion?
Second.
Also move. Thank you. And a second?
Second the motion.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that motion carries. Action items, we have 4, all countywide. Action item number 1 is a recommended endorsement of the FY 2025 third quarter budget review for the general fund, which is Fund 10001. Do I have a motion?
Second.
Any discussion on this? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Action 2 is recommended endorsement of the FY 2025 third quarter budget review for the general fund, which is Fund 30010. Do I have a motion? And a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Action 3 is a recommended endorsement of fiscal year 2025 third quarter budget review for the revenue and operating fund, which is Fund 80000.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. And then finally, action item number 4 is the recommended approval to reallocate fiscal year 2024 monopole revenue for all districts to the Park Improvement Fund.
Second.
Any discussion on this? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, this motion carries. We have 4 information items this evening. Information item number 1 is a deer management program transitioning from IR camera deer density to IR drone density and its surveying. Information 2 is the 2026 needs assessment project update. Information 3 is the capital improvement plan, bond strategy, and information 4 is the equity study update. All of those were items presented to and reviewed by the Park Authority Board during committee meetings held on January 22nd, 2025. Quite a laundry list of chairman's matters this evening. First 2, just some calendaring, reminding folks we have a Federation of Friends meeting this coming Monday, March 3rd, 5:30 to 7. There are both virtual and in-person options. In-person will be downstairs in that conference room right where you walk in the Heritage Building. But there is a link available if you're not able to join us. It will be a budget-focused discussion, talking with the Defenders Group, similar to a presentation I imagine Mike gave today. And take any questions folks have related to this. Just to put in everybody's heads, the Board of Supervisors budget public hearings will be held on April 22nd, 23rd, and 24th of this year. And the other calendar item, I know this has been moved twice now, but we'll try again. Third time's a charm. We have the joint meeting with the Board of Supervisors, tentatively held. No, it's scheduled to be held on May 20th at 3 p.m. Hopefully we can make that stick this time. A couple other things. Deidre is now the one I asked to if we have any speakers this evening, because Ben, I think he sent us all an email, but I just want to recognize Ben Boxer. Thank him for his time with us. Wish him good luck at the Department of Transportation. Somewhere in my pile of paper and in front of you is the committee assignments for this year. I know they were sent out last night as well. Take any questions, comments, concerns anybody has, and if not, we can do these for a vote, correct?
I think we ratify it.
We ratify.
Just ratify.
At the next meeting. All right, so we don't do anything else right now. Just point them out for you. Two other things. I want to point out a couple of things, 'cause I'm a little salty with the proposed budget this year. $59.8 million were proposed as cuts. 1.5, just under 1.5 of those came from the Park Authority. That's 2.5% of the total cuts. The Park Authority represents 0.65% of the general fund disbursements of the county, which is, better part of 3%. So they're taking 3% from of their cuts from an agency that represents less than 1% of the general fund disbursements. Now, some might say, hey, Kyle, well, last year we made cuts too. The Park Authority wasn't impacted. Sure. So $34 million were cut last year. So a total of $94 million. Still 1.6% coming from an agency that represents less than 1% of the county's budget. The other thing that kind of annoys me a little bit with this budget is this time last year, we were moving RecPac over to the county side, merging it with Camp Fairfax. And I know it's a program that over many years, we've made budget requests to do any number of things. More often than not, they were not funded. But this year, in its first year living within NCS, that program received a budget increase of $880,000.
Surprise.
I want to point that out. There's a number of maintenance costs that we saw that we've been advocating for the better part of, I don't know, pretty much as long as I've been on the board, but in particular the last handful of years that add up to less in terms of the cuts than what that budget increase was. And so just things for people to keep in mind when they're talking to their board members. We'll be starting to schedule those budget conversations with folks to happen in March. And if that wasn't bad enough news, I have one more item this evening that is worse news. It's we have to say goodbye to Maggie Godbold today. This is her last board meeting.
Ooh.
It's a little going away. It's just a little plaque of the Park Authority.
Are you serious?
It is.
In there.
It is? Oh my God.
Put it up.
It's beautiful. Oh, thank you so much.
Small recognition of our appreciation.
Hold on. I don't know if you're gonna trust me.
I think you need to be up here.
Sure.
Yeah. There we go.
Yeah.
I was more saying that she doesn't
Or
trust.
here, we'll do
take
it
this
this way.
picture.
Well, I'll come this way, you guys come that way, so you're not back.
See, this is why you need a professional.
I need a place I can
Don't worry.
drag wall. This is gonna go right on the drag wall.
Ready?
Yep.
That's better.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you.
Maggie, it's been a lot of fun serving with you. Sorry to see you go, but I know you're going to enjoy the new digs in the new district. Have a lot of fun there.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm going to miss hearing about all your cool birding adventures. So I hope I'm still on the mailing list moving
I'll
forward.
keep you on the mailing list.
Can we, yes.
I'll keep you on the mailing.
All right. Good deal.
Informed of all of our crazy travels.
Fantastic. That is all I have. Jay?
That's an act to follow. Okay.
So sweet. Kind of on the piano.
Exactly.
Okay.
Okay.
So directors matters. Okay, good. Next slide. Okay. Record-setting camp registrations. Spring and summer camp registration day is one of the most anticipated days of the year for so many Fairfax County families, including this one. If you remember last year, there was a little snafu where our registration crashed the entire county system on a Tuesday. And so I want to applaud staff for really getting together and figuring out how they can implement next year that makes it a lot less stressful. There were people messaging on Facebook. It was a really, you don't think that it was a really stressful time when people could not get into the system last year. And so this year, staff implemented a split registration model. And so they split the county into two different halves. And had, was it like colors, blue and green, or some blue and green registration, based on where the camp was. And that was to reduce the user volume on the system and create a much improved registration experience. So here are the results. First of all, it went swimmingly. I was in Orlando. I specifically not pushed back. Yes, it is, because I wasn't on the phone and I wasn't breathing down people's neck. I purposely had my flight out late enough that I could sit in the hotel and register. And I'm sitting there and I literally did this before like 8:59. I'm like, okay, here we go. And so it went swimmingly easy. It started right at 9. It was just phenomenal. The results, $9.5 million in registration revenue. Weren't we at like 7 last year? Last year, the day one was 7. So that's an enormous increase in registration revenue. 27,000 registrations, 9,000 distinct customers that were served. Social media really came alive with compliments and positive feedback from the community about the process. We hear so many times about issues all the time because people always love to call us about issues. The amount of people who call about compliments are so few that when you get a ton of compliments, you really have to multiply that almost 10 to 20 fold. This really was a situation where staff were nimble coming up with this. This was the first year. Nobody knew how it was going to work. So the fact that it worked so swimmingly well, kudos to everybody involved. So there you go. Next slide. Okay, we're gearing up for Mount Vernon Rec Center opening. So we had 200 members of the community who joined us at a January 23rd community meeting to provide an update on the Mount Vernon Rec Center construction and a sneak peek of the amazing programs and camps that are coming this May. The standing room only. We received many compliments and the community is primed and excited for the opening. A few key items to note. We expecting to open doors in May for all of the amenities except the pool. We got into construction. This is part of the issue with not completely raising a building, and the pool had issues. So we're gonna have to open that up later on. The pool opening is expected in June, followed by a grand opening event. The date is TBD, and we're hosting a full complement of 2025 summer camps at Mount Vernon Rec Center. I will also say that the stress of when do we start scheduling camps, like putting it down to paper to be in park takes. Last year. Did it go into last year, right? Sometime last year. There's a lot of trust that goes into the operations versus the programming to be able to make sure that this is going to be opening in time for summer camps, which is a really tight schedule. So it's important. The community is very primed and we're very proud of this facility. Next slide. Happy Lunar New Year, the year of the snake. Despite the threat of weather, the Park Authority hosted its 3rd annual Lunar New Year celebration at Twin Lakes Golf Course, had more than 250 attendees. The event continues our strong partnership with organizations within the Asian community, including CAFE, the Asian American Community Center, and Make Us Visible Virginia, who contributed a variety of programs. There was amazing performances, hands-on activities, and traditional tastes of Asian cuisine. It was a very well-rounded celebration. Has been for the few years that I've been able to go, of the rich Asian cultural traditions with our community neighbors. Next slide. Oh, we have a video. Awesome. Okay, the National Collection of Witch Hazel blooming now at Green Spring Gardens. So Green Spring Gardens is home to more than 220 taxa of witch hazels. They comprise a national collection accredited by the American Public Gardens Association. So it's a spidery bloom. The spidery blooming shrub in shades of orange, gold, and burgundy. They're often fragrant, perfuming the air with a sweet, spicy scent for several feet around the plants. So a lot of the witch hazels that are blooming now are Asian in origin. We do have native witch hazels on our site as well, which tend to bloom in the fall. You can find it along our native plant trail. No matter the season, there's always something in bloom at Green Spring Gardens, Fairfax County Park Authority's only public garden. Come visit. I will say that my daughter had her field trip at Green Spring Gardens on Friday. And it's a thing to have your 8.5-year-old tell you all about their field trip and then forgetting, like they're explaining, there's this place and it has a lot of gardens. And I'm like, yeah, so you have to listen to the whole thing. She had a wonderful time. Next slide. Okay, needs assessment updates. Parks Count, our parks are future. We're having a virtual public meetings for our Parks Count, which are needs assessment on Wednesday, March 19th from 6:30 to 7:30. We're having an in-person workshop on Saturday, March 22nd from 10 to 12 at the Franconia Rec Center. Outreach presentations we're working on with EQUAC, Athletic Council, Transportation Safety Board, and HHS. How to do the acronyms. Stakeholder meetings, we're meeting with Park Authority board members and respective supervisor offices. The up to 15 virtual meetings and one-on-one or small group, that's part of what we have contracted. Next slide. So our Cub Run ESCO Phase 1 project won a national, I can't do the acronym. What's ASHR? What's it stand for?
Association.
Yeah.
So the Association for
Engineering. So Keith got to go down to Orlando and get a national award for our Cub Run projects, which is really awesome. Next slide. All right, so as promised before, we have added the upcoming events calendar so that you guys can have sort of a one-stop slide as to what's sort of going on. We have an adapted swim meet that's happening at 2 p.m. on Saturday, March 1st at Oakmont. A really great event. Oakton Schoolhouse MOU signing is at 3 on Friday the 7th. We have the McLean Central Park ribbon cutting at 9 a.m. on Saturday, March 29th. Bluebills at the Bend is coming up April 5th at 10 a.m. It's all day. Saturday, April 26th is the big Earth Day celebration. Again, last year, I believe we had 7,000 people. I highly encourage you to attend if you have never been to one of the Earth Day celebrations. Huntley's 50th anniversary Wetlands Awareness Day is on May 4th. It's a really unique event if you've never been to that, which brings together not only different parks and nature centers, but also other environmental, federal and state entities that all sort of have booths along the way so you can learn all about wetlands. And then Saturday, May 10th is Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Festival at Mason District Park at 12 p.m. Next slide. I thought we were going to do, oh, we already did that. Sorry. Okay.
And just confirming, that list will be sent around to board. Can we add to it the dates related to the needs assessment items? Those 2 or 3 events that are on there. Thank you. You're done?
I'm done.
All right. Oh, let's start with online. Faisal, you have anything for us this evening?
Nothing, sir. I'll pass.
Dr. Carter?
No, nothing.
Mr. Healy, welcome to your first board meeting. Hope you've enjoyed it so far and we haven't scared you away. Do you have
Thank you.
anything for us this
No,
evening? All right.
No, nothing to add. I'm getting oriented to the board.
Great. Well, we look forward to seeing you in person here in a couple weeks.
2 weeks.
There we go. Michael. Bill?
Thank you, Maggie. It's been an honor serving with you, and we will continue these exploits going forward. And thank you to staff for the great Black History Month events that you've had throughout the month. Been very, very well attended and glad to be a part of it.
Ken?
Maggie, wish you the very best.
Thank you.
You'll be missed.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Always have a very positive outlook on everything. Which I don't always.
Somebody's got to do it.
Thank you. You've contributed.
Thank you.
Just one comment about what you were mentioning with regard to our percent of the general fund and what we're having to do. I've been involved in some, I say, development meetings. Biggest one was Tyson's. And there's a standard, pretty much a standard blurb about what do citizens want most in a development. Invariably, it's fire and police protection, education, schools, transportation, and medical. Guess what the other one is? Parks and recreation. That's time after time for my 3 or 4 experiences. So it's more than money. The public wants us.
Great.
Pass.
Abena?
I just wanted to say thanks to staff. Based on all the updates, you are really, really busy. So thank you for all you do. And Maggie, it's been an honor and a pleasure serving with you. As someone else mentioned, I'm gonna miss the bird stories. You converted me. Good, good. But I wish you the very best. Thank you. And I hope that we keep in touch.
Maggie, it's been a delight. Best wishes to you and Steve. I hope that maybe somebody can find a way to issue board member emerita invitations to the holiday party. It would be
I'll bring the
one
wine.
thing to do.
You're invited.
Best wishes.
Okay.
And you get the last word today.
Thank you. This has been the most fun volunteer job I've had, and I've enjoyed it so much. And I really look to the board to fight for the parks. That's what we do. We have to fight for the parks. And with Kyle in charge and with Jay in charge, I think we have a good chance, but it's going to take a lot of work. And I thank you for your continued fights, because it's what makes Fairfax County a great place to live. So thank you all. It's been great, and I will keep up with you.
We hope
Thank
so.
you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, we have a closed session this evening. The Park Authority Board meeting is moving to closed session, and public participants will be removed from this virtual meeting. If you would like to rejoin the meeting when the closed session has ended, you can dial back into the meeting with the same dial-in information, and you will be placed in a waiting room until the closed session has ended. That said, Dr. Carter, you have a motion for us.
Yes, I do. I move the Park Authority Board recess and convene in closed session for discussion and consideration of matters enumerated in Virginia Code 2.2-3711 and listed in the agenda for this meeting as follows. A discussion or consideration of the disposition of publicly held real estate property for a public purpose where discussion is in an open meeting where discussion in an open meeting would adversely affect the bargaining position or a negotiating strategy of the public body. pursuant to Virginia Code 2.2-3711 AC. C-1, discussion of a property located in the Mount Vernon district. C-2, discussion of a property located in the Providence district.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
That motion carries. Let us know when we're enclosed.
Yes, are we good? Yes.
Right, okay. I move, I'll just do it. I move the Park Authority return to open session.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any, well, do we need a certification here? I guess we do because we're coming out of closed session. So I gotta do the
This
roll
is
call
simply-
vote. Just hold on a second, Dr. Carter.
Okay.
So I gotta do the roll call vote, correct? Your mouth, okay. Okay, go ahead, Dr. Carter, make that motion you're about to start.
Okay, certification of closed session.
Yes, ma'am.
This is Cynthia Jacobs Carter, and I move the Park Authority Board certify that, to the best of each member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from
We didn't decide anything.
best. That one? That's not the one?
No, you're good. You're fine. Keep going.
Okay, all right. Okay, of each member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements prescribed by the Virginia Freedom of Information Act, and only matters identified in the motion to convene closed session were heard, discussed, or considered in the meeting by the Park Authority Board.
And a second.
Second.
All right, and I'm gonna go around the room, roll call vote, going in alphabetical order. Bill,
Yes.
Dr. Carter,
Yes.
Maggie,
Yes.
Tim,
Abstain.
Rick,
Yes.
Abena,
Yes.
Faisal,
Yes.
Ken,
Yes.
Mike.
There you
Mike walked out. Jonah's not here, and then the chairman will also vote in the affirmative. Okay, so I'm gonna read a new motion and go back into closed session. I move the Park Authority Board recess and convene in closed session for discussion and consideration of matters enumerated in Virginia Code 2.23711 and listed in the agenda for this meeting as follows: discussion or consideration of the acquisition of publicly held real property for a public purpose, or of the disposition of publicly held real property, where discussion in an open meeting would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiating strategy of the public body pursuant to Virginia Code 2.2-3711A3. And that is C-1, discussion of a property located in the Mount Vernon district, and C-2, discussion of a property located in the Providence district.
Second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
That motion carries, so we will return into closed session. Okay. Dr. Carter, I'm going to make you do it again. Can
This
you
is
please make a motion to come out of closed session?
All right. I move the Park Authority Board return to open session.
The second.
Second.
All right, so I'm calling for the certification. Well, that doesn't make any sense. All right.
Anyway,
No,
this
hold
is
on.
Cynthia
Just-
Jacobs Carter, and I move.
Okay, go ahead.
This is Cynthia Jacobs Carter, and I move the Park Authority Board certify that, to the best of each member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements prescribed by the Virginia Freedom of Information Act, and only matters identified in the motion to convene closed session were heard, discussed, or considered in the meeting by the Park Authority Board.
Do I have a second?
Second.
And, right. Around the room. Call for a vote by each board member. We'll do an individual roll call. Please signify by saying either aye or nay. Bill,
Aye.
Dr. Carter,
Aye.
Maggie,
Aye.
Tim,
Aye.
Rick,
Aye.
Abuna,
Aye.
Faisal,
Aye.
Ken,
Aye.
Mike.
Aye.
Here, and the chairman also votes aye. We discussed two items in closed. First, C1, addition of property located in the Mount Vernon district to the work plan. Do I have a motion?
I move to approve of the addition of property located in Mount Vernon District work plan is discussed in closed session.
And a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Second item was C2, addition of property located in the Providence, addition of property located in the Providence district to the work plan. Do I have a motion?
To approve the addition of property located in the Providence District to the work plan as discussed in the closed session.
And a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. Anybody have anything else this evening? All right, and we are adjourned. See you all in 2 weeks.